Isaiah Coleman, 72 years old, stepped into the Greenleaf Market in Charlotte, North Carolina, on a peaceful Saturday afternoon. With silver hair, a limping gait from a war injury, and resolute eyes, he exuded a seasoned yet humble presence. Dressed in a white shirt, old jeans, and dusty sneakers, he looked no different from an ordinary shopper among the crowd. No one knew that this unassuming man was once a former commander who had dedicated his life to protecting the country. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. The glass door made a faint sound as he pushed it open, a cool breeze from the air conditioning hitting his face, carrying the scent of freshly baked bread and gentle music from the overhead speakers. Having commanded hundreds of soldiers on the battlefield through long years, from the jungles of Vietnam to distant lands, Isaiah now savored these quiet moments. He picked up a green plastic basket and walked slowly down the aisle, his gnarled hands selecting essential items, a carton of milk, a loaf of bread, and perhaps a dark chocolate bar to nibble on while sitting in his armchair at home. After long days of war memories and sleepless nights recalling his comrades, he enjoyed doing these small tasks himself, seeking peace in each deliberate movement. His white shirt was frayed at the collar, his jeans faded at the knees, and his sneakers bore the marks of countless walks around the Charlotte neighborhood. He wore no medals, told no war stories, and no one here knew that he had once been Colonel Isaiah Coleman, a black soldier standing before ranks of troops, his deep voice resonating through smoke and dust to issue commands. To them, he was just a gentle old man, living in a small wooden house at the end of the street, where the porch was filled with flowers once tended by his late wife, Clara. But beneath that exterior was a man who had faced prejudice, suspicious glances from white comrades, whispers that he didn't deserve his rank, and overcome it all with resilience. As he paused at the cereal shelf, his fingers tracing the label, his mind drifted briefly to the past. He remembered mornings in the barracks, standing tall, his steady voice guiding soldiers through life-or-death moments. He recalled the times he was scorned for his skin color, but he never let it break him. Now, in the Greenleaf Market, he felt content with this stillness. No gunfire, no orders, just the soft chatter of customers, and the gentle light from the window illuminating the shelves. Isaiah smiled faintly, placing the cereal box in his basket, feeling the peace envelop him. Isaiah continued walking slowly through the Greenleaf Market, the green plastic basket swinging lightly in his hand. The gentle music from the overhead speakers still played, blending with the quiet chatter of shoppers around him. He stopped at the spice aisle, his gnarled fingers brushing over a jar of salt, intending to pick up a few more things before heading home. But not long after, the peace he was enjoying was shattered by a small sound, the clatter of a box of dry noodles, and a soda bottle, hitting the white-tiled floor at the end of the aisle. Isaiah looked up, his sharp eyes immediately turning toward the source of the noise. There, a tall man in a police uniform stood imposingly. Ryan Carter, with an outwardly smug demeanor, had just carelessly dropped the items from his hand, while engrossed in his phone. The noodle box rolled on the floor, the soda bottle tipped over, a few drops spilling out to form a small streak. Isaiah watched, waiting a moment, hoping Ryan would bend down to pick them up, as any responsible person would. But instead, Ryan merely glanced at the mess at his feet, shrugged indifferently, and turned to walk away, his polished black shoes clicking on the floor. That careless act, paired with his dismissive attitude, made it impossible for Isaiah to stay silent. With the instincts of a soldier honed over decades, Isaiah always paid attention to detail and valued responsibility in everything he did. He had taught the troops under his command that even a small mistake on the battlefield could lead to grave consequences, and carelessness was never tolerated. Seeing the scene before him, he felt a subtle unease creeping in, not because of the fallen items, but because of Ryan's attitude. A man in a police uniform, who was supposed to be a role model for the community. Isaiah took a light breath, stepped forward a few paces, and spoke in a deep, clear voice that cut through the quiet aisle. "Excuse me, sir. You just dropped a few things. Maybe you should pick them up so they don't bother anyone else." Ryan halted, turning back slowly, his cold eyes sweeping over Isaiah, as if he weren't worth noticing. His lips curled into a scornful smile, revealing even white teeth devoid of warmth. "Who do you think you are to tell me what to do?" Ryan replied, his tone dripping with arrogance, hands still tucked in his pockets, as if picking up the items was beneath him. "I don't have time for petty nonsense like this, old man." Isaiah stood still, his thin but upright shoulders unshaken by Ryan's demeanor. He met the man's gaze directly, his eyes not angry, but lit with a calm seriousness, the kind he'd used to face enemies on the battlefield. "As a police officer, you have a responsibility to set an example for the community," he said, his voice even but weighty. "Picking those up isn't just polite, it's a way to show respect for everyone here." Isaiah's words weren't loud or challenging, they carried the sincere tone of a seasoned man. He didn't expect an argument, only hoping Ryan would see the right thing to do. But instead of apologizing or bending down, Ryan let out a short, dry scoff, as if Isaiah's words were a joke not worth considering. He shook his head, his contemptuous gaze raking over Isaiah's frayed shirt and worn shoes. "Old man, you really think those words will change me?" Ryan said, his voice now laced with mockery and aggression. "What does a black geezer like you know about my responsibilities?" Those sharp, prejudiced words sliced through the supermarket's quiet air like a blade. Isaiah felt their weight, not because they hurt him, but because they echoed memories he'd faced before: suspicious looks in the military, whispers behind his back about his race. Yet he didn't flinch. With the experience of a soldier who'd stood before enemy guns, he kept his breathing steady, his eyes shining with unwavering resolve. "I'm not here to lecture you," Isaiah replied, his deep voice firm as a rock, "but you wear that uniform, and you're accountable to people. Picking those up isn't just a small thing, it's how you show respect to this community." Isaiah's words held no anger, only a sincerity forged through decades of fighting and overcoming injustice. He hoped, even faintly, that Ryan might listen. But instead of coming to his senses, Ryan let out another short, harsh laugh, dripping with ridicule. He stepped closer, his polished black shoes clicking on the floor, his eyes now flashing with a spark of menace. "Respect?" Ryan repeated, his voice rising with sarcasm. "You think I need to respect a useless old man like you, a black guy who doesn't even know his place, daring to preach to me?" The surrounding crowd began to take notice. A mother nearby pulled her child back, her anxious eyes darting between the two men. A supermarket employee, Lila, stood a few steps away, clutching her apron, whispering to a coworker, but too afraid to speak up. The air in the aisle grew tense. The gentle music from the overhead speakers, now just a distant sound, drowned out by Ryan's defiant tone. He didn't stop there. "Listen here, old man," Ryan went on, his voice now thick with deep contempt. "I'm a cop. I don't need someone like you criticizing me. You'd better know your place before I lose my patience." Isaiah remained steadfast, not retreating an inch. He sensed the curious, timid gazes from the crowd, but they didn't distract him. To him this wasn't just a personal spat, it was what he'd fought against his whole life: arrogance and injustice. He took a deep breath, his voice still calm but now sharper. "My place is right here, reminding you to do what's right. You're a cop, people look to you. Your actions don't just affect me, they affect everyone standing here." Isaiah's words struck like an arrow, quiet but piercing through Ryan's arrogance. But instead of backing down, Ryan lost control. He stepped closer, his right hand suddenly yanking the pistol from its holster, aiming it straight at Isaiah's chest. "Shut up, old man," Ryan shouted, his voice trembling with rage. "You want to die? I can make you disappear right here." The black barrel glinted under the supermarket lights, and terrified screams erupted from the crowd. A child wailed, the sound of a cart clattering, as someone hastily backed away. But Isaiah didn't blink. He stood there, shoulders squared, his cold gaze locked on the gun. With a veteran's experience facing death, he instantly read Ryan's stance, shaky, uncertain, lacking the resolve of someone truly ready to shoot. He knew it was a threat for show, not action. Still, that didn't lessen the danger. Isaiah took another breath, his voice deep and unshaken. You can point that gun at me, but you can't shoot away the truth. Your actions are being seen by everyone here. Ryan, his face flushed with fury, kept the gun trained on Isaiah. Who do you think you are to lecture me? He roared, his voice quaking with unchecked wrath. What does a black old man like you know about my job? Get out of here, before I run out of patience. His eyes blazed with contempt, though a flicker of unease showed as he noticed the crowd watching. The noodle box and soda bottles still lay scattered on the floor, a silent testament to his carelessness and pride. Isaiah didn't reply at once. He drew a deep breath, keeping his heartbeat steady, as he had on the battlefield's edge. Then he spoke, his voice low but cutting like a blade. You can point that gun at me, but you can't shoot away the truth. You wear that uniform. People are watching. Your actions aren't just a small thing. They show who you are and what you stand for. His words weren't loud or defiant. They carried the calm authority honed over decades as a soldier. The crowd no longer just watched silently. A few pulled out phones, soft clicks, sounding as they started recording. Jamal, a young black boy, stood behind his mother, wide-eyed with awe and admiration, his trembling hands filming the scene. A mother nearby clutched her child, whispering to someone beside her, her worried gaze fixed on the two men. Lila, the supermarket employee, stood a few steps away, gripping her apron, wanting to speak but silenced by fear. The supermarket's peace was gone, the air heavy and stifling, as if everyone awaited an explosion. Ryan shot Isaiah another glance, his eyes full of disdain, but now tinged with unease. He stood tall and smug, gun still aimed at Isaiah's chest, with no intent to lower it. Inside, anger surged like a tidal wave, but the crowd's attention cornered him. You want to play hero, old man? He snarled, the smirk returning to his lips. I'm a cop. I've got the power here. You're nothing, just an outdated fool who doesn't know who he's messing with. Isaiah felt the anger boiling inside, not from Ryan's insults, but from the injustice he embodied, what he'd fought against his whole life. Yet he didn't let it take over. With a soldier's seasoned courage, he mastered it perfectly, his eyes shining with unshakable resolve. He took a small step forward, despite the gun, his voice steady, but now carrying an unstoppable force. This isn't a game, son. You're in that uniform, and everyone here sees you. Pointing that gun at me doesn't change that you're wrong. It only makes things worse. For you, not me. Isaiah's words hit like a quiet blow, strong enough to shake Ryan's confidence. The crowd grew louder, some whispered, phones rose higher, and beeps sounded as videos were posted online. Jamal whispered to his mom, he's not scared at all. The clips spread fast with #justice for Isaiah, drawing eyes beyond the supermarket. Ryan felt the pressure from the stares and lenses, but he didn't lower the gun, as if pride alone held him up. Just then, the glass door swung open forcefully, and a tall figure entered with unmistakable resolve. Mayor Daniel Hayes, in a crisp gray suit, stepped in, his sharp eyes scanning the crowd before locking on Isaiah and Ryan. Two officers followed, hands on holsters, ready to act. Daniel's shoes echoed steadily on the tiled floor, each step a silent warning. He'd just gotten an urgent call from an aide during a meeting about a serious incident at Greenleaf Market, and rushed over without delay. Drop that gun now, Carter, Daniel commanded, his voice deep and sharp like a military order, cutting through the chaos. Ryan flinched, his eyes flickering between Isaiah and Daniel, but the gun stayed up. He stammered, trying to justify. Mr. Mayor, it's just a misunderstanding. This old man provoked me. I was just, but Daniel cut him off. I said drop it, he barked, his voice booming through the store, silencing the crowd. Ryan hesitated a second, then slowly lowered his arm, the gun dangling at his side, his face now pale, stripped of arrogance. Daniel stepped closer, his icy gaze fixed on Ryan. You just threatened a citizen with a weapon in front of dozens of people. You call that a misunderstanding? He turned to Isaiah, his tone softening but still deeply respectful. "Colonel Coleman, I'm so sorry you had to go through this. Are you okay?" Isaiah nodded slightly, eyes steady on Daniel, his deep voice firm. "I'm fine, but this isn't just about me. It's about others, those who might face this if no one speaks up." Isaiah's words made Daniel pause for a moment, his eyes reflecting respect. He turned back to Ryan, his voice now cold as ice. "You abused your power, threatened a respected veteran, and shattered the community's trust in the police. You don't deserve that uniform." At that moment, a woman from the crowd stepped forward, handing Daniel her phone. "Sir, I recorded everything," she said, her voice shaky but determined. Daniel glanced at the screen, the video clearly capturing Ryan drawing his gun and Isaiah's response. His face grew grimmer. "Take his weapon and badge right here." Daniel ordered the two officers behind him. One moved forward, yanking the gun from Ryan's hand, while the other removed the badge from his chest. Ryan stood frozen, his eyes vacant, unable to believe what was happening. The crowd began clapping sporadically, a few cheers rising, as if justice had been served before their eyes. Daniel turned back to Isaiah, placing a hand on his shoulder with reverence. "Colonel, your actions today didn't just protect yourself. They're a lesson for us all. I promise this will be handled thoroughly." Isaiah didn't smile, but the corner of his mouth twitched slightly, a sign of his formidable calm. "Thank you, Mr. Mayor," he said, his voice even but weighty. "I just hope this changes how some folks think about their duty." Daniel turned back to Ryan, his eyes like ice. "You've dishonored this uniform," he said, his deep voice sharp as a verdict. "Take him to the station now. We'll launch a full investigation." The two officers nodded, grabbing Ryan's shoulders and leading him out. He didn't resist, walking like a shadow, his polished shoes now making faint clicks on the tiles. As the glass door closed behind him, the crowd erupted in murmurs, phones still raised, capturing Ryan's exit in heavy silence. At the Charlotte police station, Ryan was taken straight to an interrogation room. The station chief, a middle-aged man with a stern face, had been briefed by Daniel over the phone en route. He watched the witness video, from Ryan dropping the items, pulling his gun on Isaiah, to his racist taunts, and shook his head in disgust. "This behavior is a stain on the entire force," he declared to the other officers present. Ryan sat across, hands cuffed to the table, eyes down, unable to look up. He stammered a defense. I didn't mean to escalate it. That old man provoked me." But the chief cut him off. "Enough. You threatened a citizen with a weapon and insulted a veteran. No excuse erases what you did." Meanwhile, outside the station, the incident spread like wildfire. Videos from Greenleaf Market, posted by Jamal, the woman who gave Daniel her phone, and dozens of others, flooded social media with #Justice for Isaiah and #Racist Cop Down. Within hours, they racked up tens of thousands of views, with angry comments from Charlotte and beyond. "This is the true face of some cops," one wrote. "Thank you, old man, for standing up." Another added. Local news picked it up, with headlines like "Cop Pulls Gun on Black Veteran, Stripped of Badge on the Spot." At Ryan's home, a small apartment on Charlotte's outskirts, he returned after being temporarily released pending investigation. No uniform, no badge. He sat on the sofa, head in hands, facing growing isolation. His phone buzzed non-stop with messages from old friends and colleagues, not to comfort, but to condemn. "How could you do this?" one texted. "You've shamed us," a coworker wrote before blocking him. His family, once proud of his police career, called in dismay, his mother's voice trembling. "What have you done to your life, Ryan?" He didn't answer, just sat there, feeling the cost of the arrogance and prejudice he'd once seen as strength. Meanwhile, Isaiah Coleman left Greenleaf Market soon after Daniel assured him it would be handled. He didn't stay for the crowd's praise or answer questions from those approaching him. He stepped outside into Charlotte's soft afternoon light, the green basket still in hand, now holding the few items he'd picked before it all began. He didn't see himself as a hero, just a soldier doing what was right, as he always had throughout his career. The consequences for Ryan didn't end there. That afternoon, the Charlotte police chief officially suspended Ryan Carter pending investigation. Videos and witness statements from Lila, Jamal, and the woman with the phone were fully collected, forming undeniable evidence. Past victims of Ryan's abuses began speaking out, recounting times he'd misused power without punishment. Piece by piece, Ryan's history unraveled, turning him from a smug cop into a target of community outrage. In the days that followed, Charlotte buzzed like never before. Those who'd seen Isaiah face Ryan at the supermarket shared his story with awe. Jamal, the black boy who filmed it, became a local star in his neighborhood, proudly telling friends the old man was like a superhero, but without a cape. Lila, the supermarket worker, told colleagues about seeing Isaiah stand tall before the gun, inspiring her to join a community group pushing for police reform. Even those not at Greenleaf Market got swept up, from college students holding peaceful protests to elders gathering at church, praying for a fairer society. Though Isaiah didn't seek attention, he unavoidably became its focus. One morning, a local veterans group invited him to speak at a seminar on law enforcement accountability. He hesitated, unused to the spotlight, but his son Marcus, a Charlotte lawyer, convinced him, "Dad, people need to hear your story, not to praise you, but to learn from you." Isaiah agreed. At the seminar, facing hundreds, cops, veterans, civilians, he spoke in his familiar deep tone. "I'm not here to be a hero. I just did what anyone should: stand up to injustice. Power only matters when it protects, not oppresses." Isaiah's simple yet profound words struck the audience's hearts. A young cop stood, admitting he'd ignored colleagues' wrongs before, vowing to change. An older black woman teared up, saying Isaiah's story reminded her of her father, discriminated against but never given a voice. The seminar ended with prolonged applause, but Isaiah just nodded, limping off stage, not lingering for more praise. The incident's impact went beyond speeches or feelings. Under public pressure and Daniel Hayes' direction, Charlotte's police began real changes. A new training program launched, stressing ethics and community duty, especially addressing racial bias. Hiring processes were reviewed to weed out those like Ryan Carter, abusers who'd escaped punishment. At a press conference, Daniel pledged, "The Greenleaf Market incident was a wake-up call. We won't let such behavior repeat." Meanwhile, Isaiah resumed his quiet life. He returned to his small wooden house with its flower-filled porch, where he'd once sat with his late wife, Clara, on peaceful afternoons. Thank you letters poured in, from kids' scribbled notes to emails from social groups. Some black teens from the neighborhood visited, asking to hear about his military days. And though shy, Isaiah shared tales of resilience and pride. "Don't let anyone say you're not enough," he told them, eyes bright. "You're the future, and it needs people who stand up." Marcus, Isaiah's son, retold his father's story with unabashed pride. In a courtroom speech as a lawyer, he said, "My dad didn't just teach me justice with words, but with actions. He faced a gun not for fame, but because he believed injustice can't win." Those words spread, making Isaiah a symbol beyond Charlotte, an old soldier, reminding all that justice takes courage to defend. Meanwhile, Ryan Carter faded from public view. Post-suspension, he faced an expanding investigation as past victims spoke up. Friends and colleagues drifted away, unwilling to tie themselves to someone who'd shamed the police. In his dark apartment, Ryan sat alone, facing articles and comments branding him a racist and failure. He began to grasp the true cost of his actions, not just a lost job, but lost respect and standing in a community he'd once dismissed. After the chaos at Greenleaf Market, Isaiah Coleman and Ryan Carter's story reached its end, not as either had imagined. For Ryan, it didn't stop at losing his badge and suspension. The thorough investigation Daniel Hayes ordered soon put him before a judge. At a Charlotte trial, videos from witnesses, statements from Leila, Jamal, and dozens more, including Ryan's past victims, became irrefutable proof. Convicted of power abuse and armed threats, he got a multi-year prison sentence. The day Ryan left the courtroom, hands cuffed, head bowed, no trace remained of the arrogance that drove him to pull a gun on Isaiah. The crowd outside watched silently. No cheers or jeers, just cold stares sending him to a future he'd wrecked himself. In a small cell, Ryan sat alone, facing gray walls and total isolation. Friends, family, colleagues, all turned away. Articles calling him a failed racist haunted him, and for the first time, he saw that arrogance and prejudice didn't just ruin others, but himself. The price wasn't just freedom or honor, but a bitter lesson: power without duty always leads to ruin. Ryan, once proud in his police uniform, was now a faint shadow, a warning to those on a similar path. Meanwhile, Isaiah Coleman stepped away from the community's spotlight, returning to his simple life at his small Charlotte wooden house. He didn't see himself as a hero, avoiding press interviews and grand honors. One quiet afternoon, he stood on the flower-filled porch Clara once tended, watching kids play on the street. Their laughter filled the air, mingling with birdsong, and Isaiah gave a gentle, understated smile. To him, the Greenleaf Market incident wasn't a personal victory, but a small step toward a fairer world for the next generation. Yet, despite shunning fame, Isaiah's legacy spread. Charlotte's police changes bore fruit. New officers trained with a focus on ethics and duty, many citing Isaiah's story as a vivid lesson. Community seminars kept inviting him to speak, and though he disliked the stage, he went when he could, sharing in his deep voice, "I don't want you to see me as special. I just want you to remember justice needs us to stand, not sit." Those plain yet powerful words inspired hundreds, from young cops to black teens seeking faith in a flawed society. Charlotte's community didn't forget him. Thank you notes kept coming, from kids' messy handwriting to social organizations' emails. Local students even painted a mural near Greenleaf Market, showing Isaiah standing tall with steady eyes, captioned, "Justice starts with courage." Marcus, his son, kept sharing his father's tale in legal speeches, stressing that Isaiah's act wasn't just a moment, but a reminder that injustice falls only when people speak up. Looking back, Isaiah felt no regret or excessive pride. To him, it was just a day he did what any soldier would: face a challenge and defend what's right. He stood in the afternoon sun, feeling the cool breeze sweep the porch, knowing the fight for justice never truly ends. But he believed that with each small step like this, society could inch closer to the fairness he'd spent his life defending, not just for himself, but for all who couldn't stand alone. The story closed with a peaceful scene: Isaiah in his armchair, a dark chocolate bar in hand, gazing out the window at kids still playing. He needed no medals or titles to affirm his worth. His legacy lived in the changes he'd helped spark, in the community's trust, and in the hope that the next generation would carry on his path. For Isaiah, that was enough. And in Charlotte's stillness, his message echoed: justice doesn't come from silence, but from the courage and unity of ordinary people, ready to rise when needed. The story of Isaiah Coleman and Ryan Carter in Charlotte, North Carolina, starkly mirrors today's U.S. issues, especially racial bias, police overreach, and the community's role in demanding justice. Isaiah, an elderly black veteran, faced Ryan's gun just for asking him to pick up a dropped noodle box, a minor detail exposing the deep prejudice people of color often endure daily. Ryan's arrogance, from his black old man slur to pulling a weapon, recalls real cases like George Floyd or Tyre Nichols, where police abuse power with dire results. Meanwhile, the crowds filming and spreading it online with #Justice for Isaiah reflects technology's might and community solidarity, a growing U.S. trend, where movements like Black Lives Matter leverage social media to push for change. The lesson here isn't just Isaiah's bravery, but how every American can shape a fairer society. See how Isaiah stayed calm before the gun. It reminds us that holding on to reason and values beats injustice better than rage. Daniel Hayes's intervention and police reforms show the weight of electing accountable leaders and overseeing public agencies. Plus, Jamal and the crowd's recordings urge us to document wrongdoing, a small act that can shift systems, as seen in real cases. Finally, Isaiah's shunning fame, while driving change, proves justice doesn't need fanfare, but persistence and belief in what's right. In today's US, learn from Isaiah, stand up when it counts, use tech wisely, and trust that every small step can build a better society. Subscribe to the channel to follow stories of justice and courage like Isaiah Coleman's, and thanks for joining us on this journey for change. See you in the next video, where we'll keep exploring real-life lessons to build a fairer community.